Welcome back to the Broadway Show. I'm Tamsin Fidel. Let's get back to it.
I've got the eye of the tiger, fire, dancing through the fire.
And Juliet is up for 9 Tony Awards, including Best Musical and Best Book. Paul Wontorek sat down with Emmy winner and Tony nominee David West Reed at the Civilian Hotel's Starchild Lounge.
David, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm very good. How's life as a Tony nominee?
It's pretty similar to life before.
Great.
I mean, I'm thrilled. Did not expect this, but I haven't gone completely off the rails yet.
Better than Tony nomination, what's it like having like a hit? I've always wondered what it's like to just be able to I'm gonna drop by the theater and see audiences delighted by my work. I mean,
I've always wondered that too. So
yeah, what is that like?
It's really strange. I've had a show on Broadway that was the opposite of this, that was really not a hit. And so I always kind of dreamed of the opposite experience. And I'm still such a geek about it, and just walking around the city every time I see a poster or a digital thing on a taxi cab, I'm still like, look, that's it.
That's my show.
That's my show.
That's my show. I've actually been worried about you. I was worried about you for a while because I loved your other show.
Yeah.
The Performers opened in 2012. It was one of the funniest shows I've ever seen on Broadway. It was hilarious. Everyone I know loved it, and then it closed 4 days later. So it was a huge flop.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've embraced that word.
Now I have. I've stopped crying about it now, but it was pretty rough because I wrote The Performers. I was still a student, and everything about it was so wild and unexpected. I was still in my 20s, and people were not only do we want to produce this comedy about porn stars at an award show, but we want to produce it on Broadway with no off-Broadway tryouts, no out-of-town tryouts.
And Henry Winkler and a great cast.
Amazing cast. Henry Winkler, Cheyenne Jackson, Ari Grainer, Alicia Silverstone, incredible cast.
Yeah.
And we were having so much fun, and I thought the audiences were loving it. Then Hurricane Sandy hit the city, and people couldn't even get into New York, let alone into the theaters. So it was a lesson in how fragile and special all of this is. It can all go away, and I've tried to just enjoy every step of the process this time instead of always thinking ahead, because I feel like my first time round, it was just like, and then it'll be really great when we get to this. And now every night is like a treat. So it's pretty cool to be here again.
So what happens immediately after something like The Performers closed? Like, what did you do? How did you take care of yourself right after that?
It was rough.
You were right out of school.
Yeah.
Up and coming writer.
Yeah.
Very high profile. So what was like the immediate thing? This is a good lesson for people because you clearly turned into a success story.
Well, I really did feel like the door closed, but there were all these people who were around me and were excited. And then when the show closed, it was like cockroaches when the light goes on, kind of scattering. And I was left there feeling like it was somehow my fault. And it was like, what if I never get another chance? It really didn't seem like I would get another chance to be on Broadway. And then I took this circuitous path back where someone at my agency said, we're looking for Canadian writers for this new show called SCHITT'S Creek. And I happened to be a Canadian writer and just submitted a sample and started at the lowest level in TV and worked my way up there. And then from my work on that show, I got the attention of the producers of & Juliet and was able to get the opportunity to pitch on & Juliet and then to come back to Broadway this way. So it's a full 10-year gap between these shows, and the stories of the two shows couldn't be more different. But I do enjoy talking about the failure of it now because I had people at the time saying, you got it out of the way. Everyone has something like this. And now I'm lucky enough to feel like, okay, I had my failure and I can call it that and call it a flop because I've come out the other side of it. But it wasn't easy at the time.
So obviously TV is treating you well. The Big Door Prize, the big hit on Apple TV+. You have another TV show with some great guys. Just say their names.
Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson.
These are the kind of people you're working with.
A couple of nobodies, so I'm bringing the star power to that project for sure.
And obviously in Juliet, you have another new musical starting, Roy Orbison songs.
That's right.
You have a lot.
I do have a lot
going on.
It's overwhelming, but if you've been through a period of having nothing working and just writing and desperately trying to get something into production, you know that you have to take advantage while strike while the iron's hot. So I have a little too much on my plate right now, but it's a great plate, and I'm enjoying this plate right now.
Since you've been gone, I can't breathe for the first time.
And Juliet. Here's what I know about this. So Max Martin is a guy who I've never heard of until very recently, and then I was like, oh my God, he wrote all these songs.
Yeah.
He wrote all of those amazing pop songs. His estate wanted to make a musical, right? Or his team wanted to make a musical, and then they were looking for writers to present ideas.
He wanted to make a musical, which was one of the things that was so cool about it to me, is because you often hear of like the estate of someone wants to make a musical, and you think maybe that person will show up on opening night.
This was him.
This was him and his wife. It was his wife's idea, who's also a producer. So he said, I want to do something with my catalog. Here are the songs, about 250 pop songs that you've heard. You could make 10 musicals with it, and there were no parameters. Other than he didn't want it to be the story of a boy band or a young pop star. He wanted something really different. And so I said, how about this Shakespearean story?
Okay, so literally you could have gone in any direction.
Yeah.
There's kind of a good legacy of Shakespeare spoof,
Yeah.
right? Or things
Yeah.
that jump up. I mean, there's no rights to deal with, right, with Shakespeare.
That was one of the.
So that's like the first great thing.
I don't have to get the rights. But yeah, I mean, not only are there so many adaptations and reimaginings of Shakespeare, but even Shakespeare was doing that in his own time. All his stuff was borrowing from multiple places. So it was like a classic story of young love and heartbreak, Romeo and Juliet, written by the greatest pop writer of his time. Because it is true, it's like, how does one person create hundreds of songs that are popular around the world for so many different artists, so many different styles? And I love thinking about Shakespeare as not this highfalutin, highbrow artist that we now think of him as when we study him in school, but someone who was also creating art for everyone. And he kind of like a rock star of his day. And we really lean into that in a hopefully funny way in the musical.